Yeah, first of all, I think all contributions are a hard act to follow. I don't know if I can stick to 3 minutes, but specifically Thorsten, because now I know why we hit it off over the glass of wine yesterday without talking about this specifically, because I can really sign those 3 points that he said. Perhaps what I have to say can even complement in terms of imagery and challenges to what you've mentioned, and underline it again, because I think in important points the repetition has a point in itself. I'm myself not an expert, have little experience in the region, nor am I an academic or an intellectual, so I serve a simple institution, or I have the honor to serve an institution that has existed for 70 years, and that's probably good at one thing, namely telling a story, having a place with a lot of emotions attached, having its own rituals, and in a total being a symbolic place in Austria and beyond. And this is thanks to Erhard Busek, who started this process about 13 years ago, is also willing to reinvent himself. We're now on the next generation of board under Franz Fischler and his board members that I came in with the European Forum Alpbach, rethinking again, what can a symposium, a place of gathering of very diverse groups of students, intellectual, academics, politicians, businessmen, what impact can we serve? And Vedran and others have accompanied that and seen how we are trying and struggling to reinvent ourselves. And it is quite a painful process, but I think that's a positive thing. I'll come back to that in a moment. I'll leave you with a few images and stories. Don't judge them by that. It should be just sort of a little poetic intervention. There's a warning. Did anyone arrive at the train station yesterday? No? I did. When you go to the train station and look up, there's a big, huge silo. And it was dark yesterday, and there were birds circling across. That is the warning for you, silos. And I see them everywhere, and you got to break them up, So I think you have a great honor in Rijeka. You'll always see those silos, and you remember, let's break them up. My motto is start where you are, and let's remember again. I think a lot has been said, but that's so important to create that tension, that creative tension, to know where you start. And I was reminded yesterday, walking through the CAS and talking to people, of the fairy tale of Hans Christian Andersen, The Ugly Duckling. I think CAS is a bit like an ugly duckling. It will turn into a beautiful swan, but people will be very surprised with this here. Why? And I think it complements what you said. Rijeka is not on the world map. It's not Berlin in terms of the attractive. I mean, you started out as an ugly duckling in Berlin in '81, in a way. Berlin, no one knew that it was going to open up in that way. The university itself is relatively new and doesn't have that reputational bonus to say, I'm going to Oxford. All Souls College is the prototype for CAS, I would challenge here. There are hardly any resources. See, for example, what the Chinese are doing in attracting, you mentioned the money issue, in attracting people for short-term or long-term stays. Money is not an issue there. You are in a rather economically vulnerable region. Bavaria, for example, it's easy to foster that culture of collaboration between business and universities. That's ingrained there. Much harder here, of course, for obvious reasons. There is a general, as I said, I'm not a Balkan expert, but I sense a general trust in institutions in the region, in institutions of any kind. Also in the diaspora. It's not Scandinavia, where anything you start off with a board is already revered. A loss of intellectual self-confidence. I don't know, Vedran, what you would say to that, but I feel that, of course, as the Balkan region has withdrawn to within itself, it's lost that confidence that you could say in grand Yugoslav days, going out, conquering the world, building things all over, just Yugoslav architecture as an example, is different. And this is not anything related to you. The whole university sector and the learning sector is under complete change. And even the big guys don't understand what's happening. I mean, people like Helga Novotny from the ERC tell us that no one knows what the massive online open courses, for example, is bringing to universities. But just to say, so start where you are. I think it's important to know what challenges you have. And I have to commend the bravery to start at this moment. Such a brave venture. That itself deserves a round of applause, which we'll probably give you afterwards. Use what you have, and I just have to re-emphasize tension. The tension that I've mentioned is a great source of inspiration. I would challenge you, and I think it's already happening here, that you create an intellectual torpedo factory that linking to the history of Rijeka, an intellectual torpedo factory, a torpedo that is small, agile, quick, resourceful, imaginative, but ready to take on and sink big academic supertankers by sheer creativity and work. Yeah? You need to work on your own story. I think narration was a big focus on Thorsten, that a wider community and supporters can understand. Reach out on the local level, specifically. Speak to, and I would challenge you really to speak to a wide range of community now that you have established and talked to the international, national, Balkan level. This might sound a bit absurd sometimes, but don't judge me by the idea, but just simple things like talking to local fishermen might make you discover that there's a house for rent on an island that you can use as a retreat for your academics that adds to the attractiveness of your venture. A local shipping company, you might come up with the idea to start an annual CAS cruise in the area, or just a sailing trip for your fellows to kick off with a ritual for each semester that again makes you unique, which nobody has. And I'm talking about examples that actually were implemented in other similar institutions. Just remember the Nation Cruise in the US or similar ventures. And of course, and again, I think Thorsten and others have mentioned it, push yourself if you say you want to really create a multidisciplinary learning community. Arts not as an adornment, but as a catalyst. And I think here you have a chance to create a learning community that is so different that people will be drawn to it despite all competition internationally. Again, complements what you have said, by creating that free space, but also here I can meet learners or people to share with me that I wouldn't get in any other CAS. That's your only chance. Do what you can. I think you've adopted it already. You're not tearing down all walls straight. Use your energy. It's a marathon run. It's not a quick speed ahead in a year. It's a long-term project. You have the tension as a positive state for invention, and I feel a good tension here in the room. I hope we feel it again in 10 years or 20 years when we come back. Last but not least, as Rijeka boasts the slogan that I just read, a city you were not expecting, you could equally adopt it to CAS, a center of advanced studies you weren't expecting. So in that sense, I'll leave it to it, slightly over time.